Welcome to College Admissions Toolbox, giving you the edge you need to get into the colleges of your dreams, with your host, Steve Schwartz. That's me. Today, we're talking with Ruth Vedvik. Welcome to College Admissions Toolbox, Ruth. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for being on the show. Now, you've got an incredible background. You wrote this book, the Financial Aid Handbook, after working in admissions for 39 years now. 26, of them you've been at an assortment of 6 different colleges and universities, some of them particularly, selective. And you were also chief admission officer at 3 out of those 6. Today, you're an admissions consultant. Tell us a little bit about you personally as well.
Well, I'm married. I've been married for 35 years, and we have one daughter who just graduated from university.
Oh, great. Great. So I bet you were able to offer quite a bit of insight into the admission process after so much experience yourself.
Yeah, she accepted a little bit of my advice, but she did most of the exploration on her own. She's a little independent.
Well, kudos to you for allowing her that independence. I'm sure there are a lot of things you might have thought but didn't say along the process.
Well, that's absolutely
awesome. So tell us a little bit about how you got into college admissions, at these various schools, and then your journey after that.
Well, I started at the very bottom rung of the admission ladder. When I was a freshman in college, I didn't get a work-study job, so I put my name on a list in financial aid. They called me in October, and I was hired in the admission office as a temporary part-time mass mailing stuffer. Doesn't get any more than that. Right. Boy, did I do a good job of stuffing, because they hired me as a student aide. And a tour guide, and the rest is history.
Oh, wow. Was there a pivotal moment that got you into the top of the ladder in the admission office, or a moment that led you to leave admissions and go into your own private practice?
Well, actually, I'm really blessed. I had many opportunities in my lifetime, and I paid attention, and I did the exploration process, and I'm fortunate as a woman. My husband's company was willing to relocate him as we moved, so I followed the opportunities. And if I'm going to give a piece of advice to a young adult, it's that you should keep your mind open. And when somebody calls you and says, hey, you should talk to these people about a job, it's okay to do that. Reach out, even if you think, I'd never move across the country, or I would never be interested in that. You just never know what's at the other end of that phone call or that conversation.
No, absolutely. Openness to opportunity is so key. Definitely kind of letting the world, guide you and taking advantage of whatever you come across. I'm curious, what led you to write the Financial Aid Handbook?
Well, my colleague Carol Stack and I have been friends. We had not worked together until I joined Hardwick Day, and she was already on staff as a principal. But we had been friends and conference roommates for well over 25 years by then. And over all the years, of course, we would talk about the students and their parents that were making, in our judgment, terrible financial decisions about going to college. And it was based on the lack of information. And over time, we kept saying, we should write a book. We should write a book. Well, we finally set about the process to do that. And we're fortunate enough to find an agent, a literary agent, and she found a publisher, and the book was published in 2012.
Wonderful. No, that sounds great. I'm sure you have a lot of insights after working in admissions for so long. You really see some of the questions that just keep coming up, huh?
Well, that's absolutely true. And the financial aid process is it's cumbersome and it's intimidating, especially for first-generation families that don't know much about college anyhow. And one of the things our firm does is called financial aid leveraging. It's a service we provide to college and universities that sets about the business of a statistical analysis of student enrollment based on many characteristics, including academic profile of students and their socioeconomic background. And so we help institutions determine the amount of gift assistance, which is grant money or scholarship money. Students, it's money you never have to pay back, hence the word gift. And the statistical analysis helps institutions understand how much money they need to award to families and to students in order to make the enrollment decision possible. And so it's a process that is not transparent to the consumer, to students and their parents and guidance counselors. And so it's really at the heart of the book. We explain how this works and what makes you desirable to different colleges and universities. And in fact, we lead students through an exercise that they can chart their academic profile, their test scores, their GPA, their class rank, and and then we tell them how to figure out the academic profile of different colleges and universities and where they can find that information on the web. We've developed little charts or tables that students can print out and fill out and show them that if they are in the top 25% of the academic profile at private colleges and universities anyhow, they're very likely going to receive half tuition scholarship or better. That's a lot of money, and that's just from the work and the performance in high school and their testing abilities.
Absolutely.
Right. Yep.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sure, sorry. We add in the financial aspect and fully explain in plain English. And let me emphasize that. We worked really hard for this book to be one that's written in language all of us can understand, not the lexicons of financial aid and institutions as colleges and universities are labeled. And so we walk students and families through a process. We have a whole chapter. We also help families. We have a whole chapter that's just for students to read, and it's how they can talk to their parents about their parents' money. Then we have a whole chapter for parents to read, and it's how to talk to your students about your money. And so we help families frame the conversation. So what we really hope will happen is a shift in the paradigm. The traditional college search is one where students gather information and go off and visit campuses and fall in love with a college or university. And at the very end of the admission process comes the whole picture about financial aid and paying for college. And often what happens is students will be in a position they should make a decision that's negative. Can't go there, can't afford it. But instead they make the decision to go because they've already fallen in love and end up with way too much debt. And here's one tidbit. Carol and I did a lot of research on financial planning. And the financial experts in the country will tell you that you should limit your college debt to an amount of money that is equivalent to what your first year salary will be. There should be a 1-to-1 debt ratio, no more. So if you're going to be a teacher, you don't want to borrow more than $38,000 a year. If you're going into business, you could borrow more because your income will probably be $42,000 to $48,000. We suggest that families and students should think about a debt ceiling of $36,000. And in our book, we list websites that have loan calculators on them, so students can go in and put in the amount of money that they're going to borrow and see what their monthly payment will be when they graduate.
No, absolutely. It sounds, Ruth, like you've got so many useful tips and exercises and tidbits that students can really take advantage of. I mean, the numbers that your grades, your test scores are just part of the equation. The money also really matters a lot too. So it's good that you're hitting that side of things. I think that's something that we don't talk about often enough, and definitely the conversations between parents and students need to happen. You need to sit down and have a real talk about what's going to be feasible, not just where can you get in, but where should you go based on the scholarship money that's available. So really valuable insights there. Thanks so much for sharing them. Now, I'm curious, you worked in admissions for a long time. You ended up going off and starting your own consulting practice, and you have focused really on the financial aid stuff. So I'm wondering, in your time working in admissions, could you share with us the story of the worst
moment
you've seen related to financial aid?
Well, I have a story that I was thinking about sharing. It's probably my worst moment in my career, just because of what was going on. And it happened the day after 9/11. And I was working at a very big public university, a very highly selective public university with a flight school. And the FBI showed up in my office and wanted to review all of our records.
Oh, wow.
University lawyer and administration approved it. And I was terrified in that moment that a student I had admitted had been part of the terrorist attack.
Oh, my goodness.
As it turned out, that wasn't the case. But they were, they had a watch list. I mean, that's back when we didn't think about that so much as a public, as people. And, that was quite a moment, for me personally. And, of course we did everything we could to cooperate with the FBI as they were looking for people on their watch list because they didn't know what was going to happen today and tomorrow. And, for most of us, we're dealing with what happened yesterday and, I had a lot of fear about what might happen later today or tomorrow. So it was a pretty rough moment, personally.
Oh, wow, absolutely. That's really something. I mean, going back to 9/11, definitely tensions were high and so were stresses. I'm wondering if you could share with us maybe a moment you experienced working in admissions related to financial aid. If there's anything that really stands out to you as particularly noteworthy and maybe something our listeners can gain some lessons from.
There's a single instance occurrence. Maybe I'll experience it again because I still work with a lot of colleges and universities in the recruitment effort. But I was working for a school and we had offered a young woman a very nice scholarship. And she was very smart and very talented and we had admitted her. And the father called me to say that they were sending her deposit. She had decided to enroll, but that his family didn't need the money. So would we please give the scholarship to someone who couldn't come unless they had that kind of money? I was stunned.
Wow.
I was just
It's amazing.
Stunned. And the flip side of that is I've had many moments where I've had students and their parents in my office in tears because they really couldn't afford to enroll. And our financial aid office had already done everything we could in terms of offering financial assistance. And the power of those moments is that in the end, it was really a good decision for the student not to come on as a freshman. But in every case, we worked out a scenario where the student could choose to go to community college, stay at home, get through the first 2 years of school without taking any debt. So mom and dad are still supporting, your parents, you're still paying for room and board for your kids.
Yeah.
And students are working part-time jobs to pay for the cost of community college, which are very low. And hardworking students can find that kind of money in the job market. And the advice is to save your borrowing capacity. If you're in that situation, and the four-year school that has the program you want and the fit that you need for your college or university is just beyond your reach financially, my advice, and Carol and I advise, that you save your borrowing capacity for the last 2 years. That way, you should be able to get through all but the most expensive schools and get your four-year degree with a reasonable amount of debt. Again, I talk about that $36,000 debt ceiling, and that's especially possible for students that have a college university within, commutable distance. It's we always advise students, have the traditional college experience if your family can afford it, if you can do it without amassing so much debt that it becomes disabling when you take your job, and pretty much all you can do is make that loan payment, and you really can't afford to do the things that you'd hope to do once you started working.
Absolutely. Really important advice to keep in mind. Make sure you can afford it. Make sure that you don't let that debt pile up. Could really limit your options afterwards, and you want to keep your options open for whatever might come your way and whatever you might decide to do. So thanks so much for sharing that, Ruth. I want to shift gears now, moving to my favorite part of the interview, which is the lightning round. I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions. You give me some rapid fire responses. Are you ready?
You bet.
Great. What's your number one piece of advice for the college admissions process?
Be honest.
Absolutely. Could you share with us one habit that you believe contributes to success?
Absolutely. Work ethic. It's all about perseverance and setting goals and doing whatever it takes to achieve them.
Definitely. What's one online college admissions resource that you absolutely love?
I use it all the time. It's called College Navigator. Just type that into your search box and it's actually based on the government data that's collected from all 4,400 colleges and universities across the country. And it's a great search engine for students to use.
Excellent. College Navigator, we'll link to it in the show notes.
And you can trust the data. It's the same data that colleges and universities report up to the federal government. So it's got to be accurate. There's no embellishment.
Yep, they're not playing with those numbers. They're official. What's one book that you believe no college applicant should be without?
Well, of course, the Financial Aid Handbook. But I also like a book that's called The Guide to College Admission.
Great. We'll link to both of those in the show notes. What are you up to these days, Ruth? What's next for you?
And in my age group, just about everyone gives the answer, working on retirement. But I love what I do so much that I'm not quite ready to retire. So, I'm so blessed. I get to work with different colleges and universities, and mostly what I do is work in a long-term engagement. And for example, right now I'm working with a state university that just needs to kind of organize their effort a little bit to really optimize the enrollments that they'll have. And I'm having a blast. It's so much fun to be working with them.
Awesome. Sounds like a lot of fun. Make sure you tell those colleges to give students more money.
Well, that's
it. All right, great. Where can folks find you online, Ruth?
The website is called The Financial Aid Handbook. All one string of letters there. All string those words together. And we put some of the PDFs out there. Some of the tools are available for everybody, and descriptions of the information you'll find, and also where you can buy it.
Great. So the financialaidhandbook.com. Get some free PDFs, get some free tips, get the book. Thanks so much for joining us, Ruth. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me, and good luck, everybody, in finding a college or a university that will meet your needs, help you achieve whatever it is your dreams are. All the best to you.
All the best. Absolutely. Thanks, Ruth. Take care.
Thank you very much.
When I first started working on my applications, I felt like I was competing with everyone at my school. There was this sense that top colleges would only take a few kids from each high school, and it made people afraid to help each other. So I went online and looked at message boards and forums to try and get help from others who were also going through the process. But I felt like a lot of them just had this kind of negative vibe. Everyone's accomplishments seemed more impressive than mine, and the people who posted were just kind of full of themselves. To be honest, it ended up making me feel bad about my chances, like I didn't have a shot at getting into my reach schools. So over the past few years, I've been working to try and change this. I've built an online forum where people actually help each other instead of putting each other down. And you can get advice from experts who've helped thousands of students get into top colleges. So check it out and feel free to post any questions you have at collegeadmissionstoolbox.com/forum. Thanks for listening to College Admissions Toolbox. Head over to www.collegeadmissionstoolbox.com to get more free tools and resources that will help you get into the colleges of your dreams.